Hello, everybody. I'm glad that you are joining us today. We are going to talk a little bit about scheduling IETs in CCR. This is something that can be a little bit tricky, and we do have some hurdles that we sometimes have to jump through, or some things that make it a little bit harder for us. So a lot of what I want this to be is I'm going to share some ideas with you of tricks or things that I've found that can sometimes make it easier, but I also would just really love this to be a conversation. And so we're going to have some opportunity to share some things that we have found that have made it difficult to do this, but also please feel free to unmute at any time and chime in. The more ideas and the more strategies we can have, the better it will be for everybody. So please feel free to contribute either successes or struggles or frustrations or anything. And I can promise you that I will not have the answer to all of them, but that we can together try to come up with some possible ways to work around some things. And then I will take notes and take back to the team anything that I might not have an answer to, but one of my colleagues might be able to help me with. So just wanted to say that first, that please, this is going to be informal and flexible, and I am one person with one brain, and you all have strong minds too, with lots of ideas. So, we are stronger together. So chime in. All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right, can everybody see that presentation? Yes.
We can.
Try to move this thing. There we go. All right. Scheduling in CCR, scheduling IETs in CCR. All right, so a few different things that we're going to go over and through the slides. What are the components of an IET that we're scheduling for? What does it mean to be concurrent? What is kind of the pie in the sky idea of what this could look like? I think it's always good to start with that, even if we know that we can't do exactly everything that we want to do. What in a perfect world would we do? We're going to look at a couple different samples of how to schedule these, talk about some of the hurdles, and then talk about what we need to do to make it happen. Okay, so to start out, components of an IET. I'm sure all of you know this by now, but so we need to have adult education and literacy. So that could be high school equivalency classes, adult high school, English language acquisition, whatever programming students are in that make them eligible for Title II services. The second piece is the workforce training activities. So that is the industry recognized credential that people are training for. And then the third piece is the workplace preparation activities. And that is the soft skills or the durable skills or essential skills, or they seem to come up with a new name for all those skills all the time. But whatever skills that are helping our students to be prepared to enter the workplace. All right, so what does it mean to be concurrent? There are a lot of different it's not explicitly stated in the legislation, so this is one of those things that we kind of are left to define on our own. And the way that we have defined it is that people are currently enrolled. It means that they are enrolled in 2 classes at the same time. So concurrent would be students attend basic skills classes in the morning and workforce training classes in the afternoon. That's one example. Or students attend basic skills classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and workforce training on Tuesday, Thursday. Sometimes we'll look in the examples later. It could even be that this week I'm going to HSE classes and next week I'm going to culinary classes, and alternate weeks. Some programs have done it like that. So as long as you are enrolled in both the Title II class and the workforce training class at the same time, then it is concurrent. They do not necessarily have to happen on the same day. Some places go so strict with that definition to mean that you have to be in both classes on the same day. Not exactly concurrent would be students attend basic skills classes January through March and workforce training April through June, because they are not happening at the same time. One is happening before the other. Are there any questions about concurrent?
Yes. Could you explain a little bit more about the dates? Because Both classes might not begin and end at the same time. Could it be possible that concurrent mean that sometime during the period where the one class took place, it matches the time that the other one took place? Like, for example, what if they happen concurrently only for 2 weeks, or only for 3 weeks, or for 1 week?
Yeah, so it would depend a little bit on what the class is. Ideally, you want to have a single set of learning objectives, and that is one of those pie in the sky sorts of things. We can't always make that happen as much as we would like to. But I would say if you're in, let's use a culinary class, for example, and say it's a semester-long culinary class. If you are only co-enrolled for a week, that might be pushing it a little bit as far as concurrent. You want the majority of the class to be happening at the same time. However, you might have a student who enrolls in Title II programming, but the culinary class doesn't start until next month. So they begin, I know that when I was at a program, I did not want to ever turn a student away and tell them to come back in a month, because oftentimes they're not coming back in a month. You got to kind of grab them when you have them. So, go ahead and get them started. And then in a month, they would begin the culinary class or whatever the workforce training class was. As far as advances is concerned, at the time that they enroll in that second component or the workforce training piece, that is when you would then go into advances and code them as IET once they began the workforce training piece. But for the spirit of concurrent, I would think that you would want at least half of the workforce training class hopefully would be happening. Because really the idea of an IET is that both pieces are supporting one another, and that's kind of what makes it a beautiful thing, is that when they're happening together, both are stronger. So we want them to
and that's usually what we shoot for, but sometimes based on scheduling it's not possible. So I wanted to ask that.
Yeah, and I know that's not like an exact answer, but hopefully that gives you kind of like a general idea. But we know that they might not always have the exact same start and end date, but hopefully the majority of them would be concurrent. And on the other side, you might have a student who's enrolled in high school equivalency preparation and in culinary class, and then they move through their high school equivalency really quickly and test out and they graduate and they're done. Then obviously you're not going to still make them come to those classes, and then they just finish the second half. If they need additional support and they're still eligible, then you could support them. But they don't, you might finish one before the other. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about concurrent? All right, so pie in the sky ideas. What would this look like if we were in a perfect world? The schedules would complement one another. So hopefully you would have planning with the workforce continuing education or curriculum program to plan the courses so that they were offered in a way that was accessible, not just accessible, but valuable to the students. Again, in a perfect world, co-teaching, we're going to look at a sample in a minute, would be a beautiful thing. I know that our system is not really set up for that at this point. Maybe someday we'll get there. But it's a lovely thing when those the workforce training instructor and the adult education instructor are working together. So we are kind of at a point right now where we just need to try to find ways to do that to whatever extent we can make it possible. Ideally, the employer would be involved, not only in the development of the IET, but throughout the course, whether it's in the workplace preparation activities, through mock interviews, or help with resume writing, coming in, talking about job opportunities as part of their job prep. Or maybe even coming in and or as part of the workforce training, going into the industry or business or whatever, depending upon what the IET is, and getting a feel for what that workplace environment is like. And built-in advising. So that is a piece of the definition of an integrated education and training program. And that's why we this year added that as a piece of the IET template when you fill that out. That and a lot of people are still, Matthew and I went through a bunch of the IET templates that were submitted this morning, and lots of people are still using the old template. So I'll just plug that in as a little reminder to use the new template, because that does address this advising piece, which is a really important part of an IET and a career pathway. So there is a new training out that hopefully most of you got an email about. If you didn't, let me know and I will send it to you. But it is a new training through Links. Sandra sent it out to our whole team and asked that we all participate in the training. It takes, it says 2 hours. I think it took me a little bit less than that to complete, but it is a great training. So I highly recommend. It's called Advanced IET Fundamentals. And I see Jennifer is here, and she was part of developing some of the toolkit that is associated with that training. So it is a really great training, so I highly recommend that all of you participate in that and that you kind of add that to your list for when you have new employees in your program. It gives a really great overview of what an IET is. So when I know that's hard, sometimes that onboarding component for new staff and trying to figure out how to acclimate them to all the different things that we do in our programs. So add that one to your list. It's really great. But when I was doing that training, I saw this kind of scenario was shared in the training, and I actually cut and pasted it into an email to a couple people here and was like, how can we make this work here? So it says the adult education and CTE faculty design and team teach a contextualized math curriculum in the construction management and computer aided drafting and design degree programs. Collaboration between the CTE and math faculty was key in developing these activities. CTE faculty brought knowledge of how to teach and incorporate the related math concepts. And they quoted, the math instructors were an integral part of the entire project. During the first year, they were in the classroom team teaching with the CTE program instructors for 2 to 3 weeks of each course. One CTE instructor explained that the modeling of the adult education instructor helped me become a better CTE teacher. I learned several techniques from them that will help me in future classes. So I read this and I was like, how can we make this happen? Which is obviously a little bit tricky to do with our FTE structure and things like that. But to whatever extent, I mean, I think that's a lot of what I wanted to kind of work on today. To whatever extent we can take these like pie in the sky in a perfect world, this is what it would look like, and find ways to implement as many pieces of that as we can into our programming. I think that will lead to the best outcomes for our students, most importantly, and then also for your programs. Does anybody have any examples of team teaching or ways that you have collaborated that you would be willing to share with us?
We ran a last spring, a team teaching combined IET with a sewing trainer, and he went through our tutor training and got all the methodology to provide the his sewing instruction and teach English while doing it, while our instructors were in there as well, circulating and teaching. And it worked theoretically, but it really came down to who the instructor was. He started to get kind of territorial, like, you know, this is my training space, and you know what, you don't butt in, and it was hard to get a groove, and it kind of soured the relationship. But it really came down to who it was, right? So I could imagine it going swimmingly with a different person. So, and that actually harmed the relationship with the trainer because of, you know, they took his side and all that. So that's one caution is, would the actual employee in that department be amenable to having somebody else in their room if their boss said, you have to play nice with this adult ed program.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think really supports the idea that so much of the work involved in IETs and career pathways is a mindset. And, you know, that people have to be in kind of the right mindset and really believe in the work to make it effective and make it happen. So having those right partners and the right people at the table is really important. So thank you for bringing that up. We don't want to sugarcoat anything. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly so that we can, you know, find ways to work around it and share strategies. Anybody else?
I find that sharing access to Canvas really works really well. So if you can have the content teacher share their access to Canvas to the ILC program, then it just really allows you to be able to co-teach that class really well, go into their Canvas and see what's being assessed so that you can facilitate the teaching of that material through the lens of ESL and through the 3 components that the IET requires. Just seeing that information really helps a lot.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I always recommend that you have a copy of the syllabus, but being in, you know, if there is an online course or Canvas or whatever platform you're using at your college or your program, that is a great way to have the information and know kind of what your students have coming up. It really helps you to be able to contextualize what you're doing and to be able to make things most beneficial to your students and their overall experience. Anybody else? These are great. All right. Okay, so these are some snips of the schedule that I used. When I was at Central Carolina Community College, I worked with the Youth Build program. And so our students were required to be, we had a few extra components that we were required to do. We also had extra funding to help cover the cost of the extra staff that facilitated those extra components. So I always just want to be straightforward with that because don't want to ignore the elephant in the room. So again, some of this is pie in the sky just because we did have extra funding, which really equated to extra people to do the work. This is the way that we operated our schedule for our construction classes. So we had our students in Monday and Tuesday, they were in their HSE class from 8:30 to 1:30. And on Wednesday and Thursday, they were in their construction class from 8:30 to 1 o'clock. Our program ran for all of our students from 8:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So they had a study hall with their advisor on Mondays. And so that is one of the components because we had we did not have enough students or enough staff to have a separate class. We had 3 career pathways. We had construction, culinary, and health science, CNA. We did not have enough students or enough staff to have a separate Title II HSE class for each of those career pathways or each of those IETs. So one of the ways that we kind of worked around that to contextualize the learning was that we had a study hall with an advisor. We separated our students into advising groups by which IET they were in. So we had one staff person was the advisor for the construction students, one staff person was the advisor for the CNA students, and one staff person was the advisor for the culinary students. And so every Monday afternoon, that group met with their advisor for an hour. And Brand, that's where it would come in super handy to have access to that Canvas class because they would work on okay, so you have in CNA, you have a test coming up this week on, you know, vocabulary of whatever. And so they would make flashcards together and they would go through those and they would quiz each other and or they would know that, okay, we're working in our HSE class, we're working on fractions. And so they would work in that class then on contextualizing some extra support with fractions contextualized to health science. So that was our way of trying again. So we couldn't have pie in the sky, but we wanted to try to keep true to as much of what an IET is as possible. And so that worked out really well for us. And our students loved that study hall. I think it also was really great for them to just build that community and they felt a part of something. We had one girl who she did finally, she got her CNA and she got her high school equivalency. It took her a long time, but she did it. And one of the reasons it took her a long time is because she hated coming to her HSE classes. She just, and this is a perfect example of why IETs can work so well. She hated it. She hated high school. She dropped out because she hated it. She had bad experiences. She didn't feel good about the work that she did in math or in her reading. But she loved being a part of that group of CNA students. So she would skip the whole rest of the day and she would come for study hall. And, you know, some people said, well, should we let her come if she's not coming for the rest of it? It's like, of course we should. If she's going to come for anything, we'll take her for whatever part she is willing to be here for. And eventually she did make it through all of the components of it. But she liked feeling a part of that group, and she felt supported by her peers there. She felt supported by her advisor, and it was a really positive experience for her, and I think for most of the students. And then they would carry through some of those study habits throughout the week, you know, with each other. When they had these breaks, some of these chunks in the middle of the day where there were breaks, they, you know, we would see them pulling out their flashcards and quizzing each other and things like that. So, and then we had these other components. Again, we did have staff to help support with that, but on Tuesday and Thursday, they would have either their job prep, which was like working smart, or, you know, we had developed some different workshops that they would work on for their durable skills, or social emotional, which would be a lot of, we would talk about like conflict resolution, anger management, just different ways that you could get through a day at work when there was stressful things going on around you. And then on Wednesday afternoons, they had opportunities to meet with their advisors. So some of the good things about this schedule, that it was flexible scheduling for the students. It does require instructor flexibility, because you'll see in a minute that this NCCER construction is one piece of the puzzle. And so when you add in the other two IETs, there were students coming and going a lot. The variety helped maintain motivation. So students like Catherine, who I was just talking about, who did not like coming for her regular high school equivalency classes, it helped her that she knew that she had this other stuff mixed in that she did enjoy going to. And that is what helped her finally get through it. And this could be duplicated in the evening. So you could do something similar to this schedule that you could run in the evening and just adjust the times a little bit as you needed to. Any questions or input about this? All right, so then we're going to look at what this looked like in the bigger scheme. So this was the way I created this schedule was this was what you're looking at now is the first tab on an Excel spreadsheet, and then there was a tab for each individual cohort, which is what we were looking at a minute ago. So on Mondays, is anybody from CCCC in here? Is Anita here or? Well, Dan, you don't count. You weren't there when. Okay, Anita was the instructor.
I am here, Lindsay.
Yeah. All right, so you can say how this was both great and or awful for you. Anita was wonderful and flexible, and we had a lot of growing pains over the years of trying to get to a point where this really worked for everybody. So I want you to say everything you have to say in just a minute, Anita. But so this is where one of the struggles we had is that we could not do this with a membership class, because as you can see, students were coming and going a lot. So Anita had to be really flexible, because on Mondays, she would have the CNA students in there all day. Her culinary students would come in at 8:30, but they would leave at 10 and go off to their culinary class. And the construction students were there the whole time. So there was a sign-in sheet, and they all signed in when they came and when they left. On Tuesdays, the CNA students didn't go to their HSE classes at all. They were in CNA from 9 to 1. Culinary was the same thing. They were there for 2 hours in the morning, and then they went to culinary class, and construction was there all day. And then on Wednesdays, the CNA students weren't there at all. Culinary students were just there in the morning, but the construction students were there all day because they had their construction class on, the construction students were not there at all. They had their construction class on Wednesday and Thursday. So on those days, they just went to construction class and they went to their HSE class on Monday and Tuesday. So Anita, do you want to talk for a minute? I did not talk to Anita about this beforehand, so I'm totally putting her on the spot. But since she was the one who was teaching this class, do you want to reflect on this a little bit from your experience?
Yeah, that was new for me doing that, but it worked. The one thing that I think what we started to see the first time we did it, we let it run however it was running so we could figure it out. We did eventually figure out, like our construction students I did mostly math, and the construction students who were only coming to me on Monday and Tuesday, but then we're gone on Wednesday and Thursday. Instructors, that's a no-go. They didn't remember anything that we did on Monday, Tuesday. So then we did start to flip it so that it was alternate days, but that took a partnership with all of the career pathways people as well as CCR to kind of figure out what worked the best. And so that we could schedule our classes. So it ended up working. It was just a lot of juggling. There were 2 of us, so we could split some things out as we needed to. But it worked. The students got used to it. And once they got used to the schedules and where they needed to be and when they needed to be, then I think it worked. It was good, and they did well, and they learned to communicate with everybody, which was a big learning curve for them. Not just communicating with their pathways person or with their youth field people or just with us, because they would do all of that and then nobody would know, but they learned to communicate with all of us, to be like, oh, we have this, and if they had tests and they needed something else, we could also adjust to what we needed based on if they needed some more, if the math needed to be more measurements and different things that they were doing in construction, then I could adjust my schedule and my classes to do that. So yeah, it was a learning curve, but it's still working now.
And Anita was an example of kind of what John was talking about earlier, but the opposite of having the right person in the position. We just got very lucky that Anita was willing to be flexible, and there was probably times that she wanted to wring our neck a little bit, but she never did. So
it was good.
It was good. But she, and youth build was for 16 to 24-year-olds. So we did have the younger end of our students, but it was, to me, it reminded me of like parenting. And so I have kids between the ages of 9 and 14, and they will come to me and they don't get the answer they want. So then they go to my husband and see if they get the answer they want from him. And so that is kind of how it worked with the students in a lot of ways too. And so we had to constantly be texting each other in touch, because they would tell Anita, well, Miss Lindsay said that she wanted to meet me in her office at this time. And then Anita would call me and she's like, they've been down there for an hour and you haven't sent them back. And I was like, they've been here for an hour. And so, they were, who knows where, but, so it did require just a lot of communication and collaboration. And then once they knew that we were all kind of having that communication and collaboration, whether it was about behavior or about academics, it's like with your kids, it's like they kind of feel annoyed by it, but also it makes them feel supported. And deep down, it means that, that everybody cares and wants them to succeed. And I think they felt good about that, even if they couldn't always admit that to us at the time.
Maybe when they come back now.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So again, the membership versus contact hour, we kind of were moving toward membership when we started this. So we started this in 2019. And I remember when membership hours, Sandra Thompson was our boss at CCCC at the time. And I remember when they moved toward membership hours, I was like, what? That's not going to work for us. Like, what? So that was kind of something that we had to work through and figure out. The relationship with the workforce training and partners, like Anita said, was really important. So like when Anita found out that with construction, this didn't really work out well for them to have 5 days off before they came back. How can we work together to kind of shuffle the classes and the schedules to make it work for everybody? The student schedules and the availability, again, because this was a specific program, we just made it clear when they started that this is a full day thing. You need to be here from 8 to 3. However you would have that set up, you could work around different cohorts, different schedules. Like I said, some of these things could be flexible to be run in the evening. Transportation, that was one of our big issues, and that was why it was hard for us to do anything in the evening, because a lot of our students relied on public transportation. And in Lee County, Chatham County, Harnett County, where we were, there is no evening transportation. Through our Department of Labor grant for Youth Build, we had money where we could pay for people to take Ubers places, but we don't have Ubers, so we couldn't even do that. So even though we had money, we still didn't have the transportation. So that was always a big thing, and kind of we had to work our classes around that. CNA classes, they were used to running those every day from 1 to 5, but our public transportation stopped at 4:30. So that took us a long time to kind of work with them to try to, we have 10 students for you. We can make a whole class, but it can't end at 5. So, again, that just took relationship building and flexibility with our workforce continuing ed partners to make that happen. And then staffing and for study hall and the different advising are things that you would just kind of have to be creative with. I tried to get Arbany to be here today, but she had another commitment because I'm not the best with always knowing exactly the way to make things work within the law. But some of those things like study halls and things like that could be run as open labs, so that you can still count it as a class. I think I'm not making things up when I say that. I'm always scared to give people advice there, so I'm scared I'm going to say the wrong thing. But so there's, feel free always to reach out to us if you need help kind of creatively making some of these things work, and we can brainstorm with you together. And we'll have somebody who's good at being creative and somebody who's good at following the law. And then that way we'll make sure that all the bases are covered. Any questions or comments about this piece for me or for Anita? Anita, thanks for being a good sport and just jumping in. All right. I just made this for this presentation. We did not do it this way, but this is another way that some programs, some youth build programs did it. And you could do it this way too in your program. So 1 week would be HSE in the mornings, and the next week would be construction in the mornings. That is still concurrent. They're enrolled at the same time. If you had it, if you had, say, your workforce training instructor for construction, say you had enough students to run 2 classes, so you could just flop them. So you could have one class in, construction this week, while the other class was in HSE, and then flop them. Or maybe you have a instructor, if you're super lucky, who is able to teach 2 separate classes that you have IETs for. So maybe they do NCCER core, the basic construction this week, and they do plumbing or welding or whatever the other week, and you can flop them. So that's another way to just kind of creatively see how you can be flexible and make it work depending on who you have as your partners. And then still, I just kind of did this so that in the afternoon on the first week, they had their working smart for their workplace prep. In the afternoons on the second week, they had their social emotional piece. But you could obviously switch that up with whatever you were offering, whether it was the North Star digital literacy or working smart or whatever you might be doing. You could also make this work well to divide the students. That gets tricky. I was gonna say if you had 2 of the same class running, like say you had enough students to have 2 NCCER core construction classes, you could then divide the students based on, who was kind of at the higher level for their ABE classes and who was maybe at a lower level and needed more support, so that those classes were a little more balanced. So it just gives you a little different ways to be flexible. Has anybody done anything like this sort of a model before? LaQuisha, maybe, kind of, sort of?
Kind of. It was mainly more so like your other schedule.
Okay.
We didn't do the week on and week off. We were going to try that before. This one is not at my current location, but because I worked with Youth Build before a long time ago. And when I was in Oklahoma. And so we had to do, like you said, have to play around with the schedule a little bit to see what works best for that age group. And we were on a college campus too. And so, and we did find out that it was just because we paid them every week too. So that was a, that was a good thing to get them in and they're, you know, because they knew they'd get their checks each week. So we didn't have to do too much arm twisting. But I just say, to close out, I just say that, yes, I've seen, we did try to do something like that, but it just didn't work as well. And then I did it with the college, not college, high school. I was in career programming and I had 10 programs that I was over. So I was trying to manipulate the schedule. And so working with our partners worked. So one of them is the automotive program and we had a manufacturing program. And so with that, I had to get creative with that because they wanted the students to learn each day as well. It was like Monday through Friday. I couldn't take a Thursday off.
Mhm.
And that was, that it ended up working out, but it was still kind of a little bit of stress there.
Yeah.
And then the automotive group, it was different because they didn't want them to come on certain days and making sure they had people there when they were going to the site to learn the skills. And so, yeah, I think everybody knows it's a juggling act. So.
Yeah, it takes a lot of juggling and I was there for 3 years doing it and we were juggling. I mean, they're still running it and still juggling, like Anita said. So it's a constant cycle where you're evaluating and seeing what's working and what's not and how can we kind of, and it changes sometimes depending on what students you have, or then you might have a change in training partners of who's, you know, offering the class and their schedule might be different.
I agree.
And LaQuisha kind of alluded to this a little bit, but one of the other things with Youth Build, the reason the Fridays are blank is that Youth Build started as just a construction program and then expanded to offer other career pathways as well. But one of the requirements of the program is that you contribute at least 1 unit of low-income housing to your community per grant cycle. And so we did that at Central Carolina through a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. So on Fridays, we were all on the job site together at Habitat for Humanity. And we did that for all of our students. So whether they were in nursing or culinary or construction, they all went to the job site. I said, you're all going to have a place that you live in someday that might need a light fixture replaced, or you might need to put in a fire extinguisher or learn how to paint a wall. Lord have mercy, those kids, watching them paint was...
It was horrible.
Oh my God. Woo, that was something that was some good learning experiences for me. But so we were all at the job site on Friday. So that's why Fridays are blank. It's not that they didn't come. It's just that we were. So that gave Anita and the other instructors a little extra time to work with some of their other students who maybe weren't Youth Build students, or to have some time for planning and professional development and things like that. Besides John, I don't know if is there anybody else on the call from a CBO that wants to reflect at all about how their scheduling works, or? No? Okay. Just want to make sure to give everybody a chance. I know that a lot of these strategies can work just fine with the CBO, and some of them may not. A lot of it probably depends on who your training partners are, if you're working with a community college. And kind of who the different components that you're having there and the different people at the table. All right, so Dan is going to put in the chat for us in a second. I didn't warn him of when this slide was coming up, but a link to FigJam, which I will be transparent. I've never used this before. It's very similar to Jamboard, but if you could all follow the link in the chat when it gets there and go to our FigJam and put in, share with us some of the different hurdles that maybe you have encountered while you have been doing this work.
Lindsay, I put it in the chat a couple of
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to log into mine because I'm struggling to get to the chat. So here we go. That work? Can you see it now on my screen? Okay, good. Ooh.
I don't know what I'm doing. For some reason, it won't let me type. Am I missing something?
You should be able to, did you use the little square at the bottom, this with the T for text? You should be able to click on that and drag it up and be able to type in it. Is that working?
It says something that says, oh, Lord, it's split on my screen. I'm looking on one screen and I'm like, okay, I see all this, but where am I supposed to type? Okay, I see the T.
Is that working for anybody?
There it is.
I see lots of people in there, but I don't see any.
Because they were probably doing what I was doing, trying to figure out
Maybe.
what to do.
We've never used this before, but they're getting rid of Jamboard, so Lindsay's trying this out.
Thanks for being my guinea pigs.
But it's obvious that nobody can figure it out.
Yeah, maybe it's not working, so that's all right. You can just
And I don't know who, I am not in there, and it
oh,
says
look at Karen made it work.
it says
Karen got
Daniel
it.
Logus is doing something. That must be Lee.
Karen, can you tell us what you did to get it to work?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's me.
And it actually originally came up as Lindsay. So, I mean, I really don't know what I did. I was clicking down on that bottom and it just came up. But I did have to log in using a Google account.
Yeah, that was the same situation I had, Karen. So that might be what some of us are struggling with, is you have to log in first to even have access, editorial access.
Heather, so see, look, we're brainstorming different ways that you can use this strategy or never use this strategy with your students.
But now
Okay,
I've typed over here, but I can't get it over there.
I see where, oh, look at that. That's a fancy little thing.
There it is.
It says, okay, space, funding, testing, 1, 2. Oh, Heather says you have to click on the yellow sticky note at the bottom.
Oh,
And then drag it to the board. Oh, I like this, the laughing face. I don't know how somebody did that, but it's great. I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit while people are writing in. I see somebody's typing getting student interest. We had one of these webinars planned for several months ago that was supposed to be on marketing, and our marketing person wasn't able to do it, so we had to cancel at the last minute. But one of the strategies that I have been sharing with programs is sometimes it's hard to get student interest for the students who you already have in your program. That's always a great place to start. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit. They're people you already have there. And so if you can get them interested in one of the IETs you're running, that's great. Another strategy, though, is to recruit people who may not have come to you just to work on their high school equivalency or to improve their basic skills, but maybe would come to you because they're interested in a career. So like Catherine, who I was talking about, who she hated going to her reading and math classes, but she was really excited about being a CNA. And so she wanted to do that. And she never thought she could do that because she hadn't finished high school. But when we marketed like, hey, come to this program if you want to be a CNA, if you don't have your high school equivalency, we'll help you get that while you're here. So sometimes it's not just about getting the interest of the students who you already have, but it's about reaching out to the community. We put flyers in libraries, in food pantries. We partnered with high school dropout prevention coordinators. A lot of times I feel like those dropout prevention coordinators, obviously they don't want anybody to drop out of school, and we didn't want people to drop out of school either. However, those coordinators seemed to feel a little bit more comfortable if they knew that one of their students was getting ready to drop out of school. I think they felt a little bit better sending them somewhere they were getting a credential that they could go get a job, so that if they didn't go get their high school equivalency, it wasn't like they were just kind of leaving them without anything. So it seemed like that maybe helped a little bit. But yeah, so the dropout prevention coordinators, libraries, food pantries. I know that with youth, at one of the Youth Build conferences that Sandra Thompson went to, one of the presenters said that they just carried flyers in their car and would hand them out like at the McDonald's drive-through or wherever. Here, share this with people inside. If anybody wants to train to be a construction worker, we've got an upcoming cohort. Come, learn more about it. So different things like that. There's a lot of it is thinking outside of the box as to who you're marketing to and what message you're sending. Again, that was supposed to be a whole nother one of these sessions, and we are still going to try to reschedule that. Silos, yes, that's something that we're working on here in this office as well. Changes in partnership leaders, yes. Sometimes you just finally get your one partner to grab onto this and understand what you're trying to do, and then that position changes. Funding, yes, that is a tricky piece of this. Remember that you can, as a last resort, you can use Title II funding for instruction, for workforce training if you need to, or for tuition. I know not everybody has availability in their budget to do that, but if you have exhausted all other possibilities of how to pay for these classes or for instructors, and you have money available in your budget, you are allowed to do that. Scheduling, yes, that is definitely a tricky thing. Scheduling with the training partner requires lots of meetings, lots of advocacy for your program to explain, why what you're doing is important. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being willing to participate in my experiment. So this is Fig Jam. I don't know whether that means you want to stay away from it or you want to try to use it in your classes sometimes, but I'm going to leave it open so that if anybody wants to share things at another time, keep adding to it and refer back to it, you're welcome to.
Lindsay, if you're using Title II funds in the workforce course, everybody in that course would have to be Title II, correct?
Yes. Yes, so you would be just running that within your program. I don't know how the word testing is showing up on the screen right now from the other screen. I'm a little bit fascinated by that, but all right, so making it happen, kind of putting all of these pieces together. Let me make sure, yes, I'm in the right place.
Whoever wrote testing has to go in on the side and erase it, because that's what happened to me.
It's still there though.
Because it pulls up a bar, and then on the bar it allows you to text, use a pencil, draw, then it has erase and all that. I never could get my notepad to go on there. It wouldn't give me the option to grab it and pull it, but it did give me this other option, and I think that's what that person did, whoever typed testing on there.
But how when I pulled my Canva tab back over and I'm reading that, how is it like
Right, look, so I'm getting ready to say something now, and I know I said this wrong. Hold on. And you see what I just typed?
Because it works like a whiteboard.
See, I just wrote hello.
If you close it, it'll go
There
away.
we go.
There you go.
Nope. No, because it's on our end. So like I said, I just wrote hello there. So I got to take it off. And so I'll just erase it.
And you erase the other one too?
I tried. It won't let me.
That's okay. It's not a big deal that it's there. My mind is just like trying to figure out how that's.
Yeah, it's whoever typed it has to go in and erase it.
Close it here too.
Because my bar is still on my screen. It's still here. I can exit out of it, but yeah.
That is interesting. All right. Well, making it happen. So we've talked about kind of all these different components, working closely with your CE and CU partners to make that scheduling work, with your HRD partners if you're offering your workplace preparation through HRD or through career services, or bringing those career services in at certain times for those workplace preparation classes to work on career searches, or that should all be part of your advising plan. So not to try to combine too many different topics into one webinar, but being in an IET or I'm part of a career pathway is a piece of that career pathway. So we really need to advise our students to make sure that they have all the information that they need to either continue on that pathway to another stackable credential or to a certificate, degree, or diploma, or that they have the information that they need to help find a job. So if they're going to exit off of that pathway and work for a little while, that they have the information that they need and the support they need to be able to do that. So the advising piece is really, really important for our students to have a positive experience that is going to carry on past just the time of this class. Working with the registrar can be important, just figuring out those different pieces of the co-enrollment, different funding models, if you might be using Basic Skills Plus, for example, to help cover the cost of some of these workforce training classes. So figuring out all of that co-enrollment and tuition and everything, it's good to have somebody from the registrar's office kind of on your speed dial that you can connect with if you need help kind of figuring out some of those pieces. And then, of course, your instructors. So you want to have your instructors a part of this conversation. They're the ones who are, their feedback is going to be really important for you in that cycle of continuous improvement and making sure this works for everybody. And that's the end. Is there any other questions or feedback or ideas to share with the group?
Just to refer to the chat, Lindsay, Michelle did ask about, I guess, the current template and where to find that for, I believe it's IETs, submitting for IETs that you mentioned earlier.
Okay, so that should be right in the Moodle. So if you go in the Career Pathways 23-24 Moodle, over on the left-hand side, it should be in there. And if you can't find it, then feel free to email me or Matthew and we can send it to you. But the new one, it's very similar to the old one, except it's simpler. So I'm encouraging you to use it because it's easier for you and because it does, the two new pieces are the advising and the next steps on the career pathway, because we want to make sure that all of our students who are on a career pathway have the information that they need, like I just said, to continue on or to go get a job. LaQuisha, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So I have a program that I'm trying to begin, and it's with it's called BLET, the Basic Law Enforcement Training. And so I'm trying to get the schedule for that to help the students that are in need, because I have a couple who need my assistance, but I don't know how to do that. I thought that it'll be easy, but their schedule is so packed that they don't have hardly any leeway. So my only option to make it concurrent would be maybe take them away from their lunch to help with that curriculum support piece, because they work until 5:30 or 6 o'clock. And I do work 2 nights a week. So I said I can go ahead and assist those 2 nights a week. However, I have other students that I have to help with their onboarding. I'm doing digital literacy and all of that with them. So I'm just like, I don't know how else, I don't even know if there's anything else I can do to assist my students who have a very tight schedule like that to still keep it concurrent.
Dan, do you have any input as far as using online strategies to, I don't know if you heard that whole piece, but kind of scheduling with BLET classes, and there not really being a lot of time left in the schedule to be offering. Is it the workplace preparation that you're struggling with more, LaQuisha, or all of the HSE classes? Or
it would be because mine is an ESL student, so I help him with his vocabulary and understanding the curriculum piece. So I'm offering him the curriculum support piece. So they sent me like their lesson plans that they're doing, and so I try to grab him really quickly and go over it, like pre-prep him before he goes into class, so he can kind of get an idea and understand, because he did say that the instructors talk too fast when they're presenting and he can't keep up that well. And so he and I try to sit down. Actually, I have two students, and we try to work through that. My only problem is when I got the schedule, I was like, well, hey, I can come over there to the building if you can give me a space, and then I can work with those students. And then the response was, well, their schedule is so packed that we don't have, you either have to see them before class begins or after class ends. And one to two nights a week is not helping, because they test like every other day. And it's a lot of material that they have to go over. And I don't want him to be, I don't want them to fail, but I can tell that they're struggling, trying to stay afloat.
They can offer any of it online.
Do what?
You can offer anything on any piece can be offered online. John Storm is in here. During the pandemic, Reading Connections even offered the training for daycare for early childhood online. Everything was online. So you can do it through Zoom and have a synchronous tutoring or class with him, or you can use Burlington English since he's an ESL student. We
do have Burlington English. The only thing with Burlington English is it doesn't have a police component on it, like law enforcement component to it. It doesn't have any of those, but I do have some books here in the office a book that we go through to inform him of those things. But I really don't have time to do that now, because he's in the program. And like I said, they test like every other day. They have a big test every day. So example, they had a big test today, and it was over the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all of that. Remember, he's an ESL student, so they're going over Amendment 1, the Amendment 1, and how does that affect with law, with police officers and all that. So I only had an hour and a half to kind of help prep him for that, because the schedule is so tight. So I hope that he does well on his test, but I was like, I don't know what else to do. He came in to see me yesterday at his lunch, and I got maybe 40 minutes with him to try to go over some other things to make sure he understood what they were talking about and all of that. So I know he has a test in like 30 minutes. He has a test in a minute. So I'm really hoping that helped, and that I told him to study at home and do all that. But
what's great about your example is that you are basically individualizing this IET, which is what we all have to get our heads used to. We're not going to have 40 students who all want to become police officers or nurses. So it's a perfect example, and you can do whatever you want with him online if that works for all of you. John, you have any suggestions? Reading Connections is really good at running IETs.
Okay.
I was just looking through Ellie for some content while you were talking. They have some like talking to police, but that may not be like directly on target with what he needs right now. I mean, I'm not too sure about right now, other than like, Zoom classes to supplement during a time that works for him. But maybe like an on-ramp to kind of like pre-feed him some core language that would make it a little easier during the IET. That would be a really good, like, if you have those training materials ahead of time, you could say, let's extract the really difficult ones that you're going to trip up on before you start the IET. I know that may not help now that he's testing at the moment, but
I'm playing catch up. It's like I'm behind. I'm like, okay, can we get ahead real quick? I'm trying. Yeah.
And I think when you can too, again, like not at this point because it's kind of the catch up point, but when you can make it work, that's also where having that cohort is really helpful too. If you can have, even if it's, 4 or 5 students in the class together, because then they can kind of also be that support to one another. So it's great when it can work that way. It doesn't always work that way, but.
Okay. Well, that's good to know about the Zoom, because I have no idea why I forgot about Zoom. maybe we were all zoomed out and I'm like, we're done with that. But no, we got to bring it back.
But not like it was, not like all day long. That was too much.
Yeah, I think that's why I kind of blocked it out of my mind that was even an option. So
Yeah.
thank you for that friendly reminder.
Any other general questions or comments? Right. Well, as always, if there's anything we can do, or if you're stuck and you're trying to figure something out, feel free to call. I don't always have the answers, but I love to brainstorm and try to solve problems. So reach out anytime and I'll be glad to try to help. I hope you all have a great afternoon.